Discovered. My son's shocking surprise of $900,000 debt truly transformed our lives forever. Mary Thompson washed her hands in the hospital break room, glancing at the clock as the minutes ticked toward the end of her shift. Her mind was a swirl of thoughts, a jumble of patients' needs, the bills stacked stubbornly at home, and the pride swelling within her heart as Jake capped his college career. Just days ago he had walked on stage, diploma in hand, eyes shining with dreams of becoming an architect. Yet now, an unsettled restlessness coursed through her. Life, it seemed, had other plans. As night fell over suburban Ohio, dread settled in her chest. When Jake called with an urgent tone, something felt off. She had seen him through sleepless nights of studying, and all the sacrifices that came with being her son. She had taught him to work hard, to find dignity in modest means, and to stand upright even when the world tried to knock him down. And suddenly it all felt like a fragile facade. Was everything she had instilled in him about integrity and perseverance going to be for naught? Her phone chimed with a sense of finality, and the words unfurled before her like a cruel joke. "Mom, there's been a mistake." He hesitated, every pause twisting the knife deeper. "I inherited debts. $900,000 from Mr. Hughes." The name hung heavy in the air. Mr. Hughes, a mentor who had coaxed Jake through those daunting architecture classes, transformed into an embodiment of betrayal. The shock of it ricocheted within Mary, igniting a frantic loop of disbelief. They had positioned their lives so carefully. How could this possibly happen? Mary stood frozen, her breath quickening as fear coiled tight around her heart. Should she comfort him? Would she be betraying her instincts as a mother, wavering in the stand of principle they built together? There was no immediate answer, only suffocating questions. The weight of his newfound reality was almost unbearable, catalyzing the very doubt she fought every day. Should she push him to deal with it solo? On the other hand, how could she abandon him now? Before they'd even begun to navigate the labyrinth of loans and creditors, panic set in. Each discussion felt like a tightrope walk over endless chasms of judgment. The world had a way of viewing debts as mountains of misfortune only some people earn. Nobody cared for honesty when discussing societal burdens. Each meeting felt like an emotional audition for a role neither of them wanted to play. As they faced banker after banker, Mary couldn't ignore the societal inequities that shaped Jake's debt narrative and their struggle. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Through sleepless nights, Mary pondered their fate. The stakes kept escalating. Unforeseen obstacles reared their ugly heads when she least expected it. Doubts crept in, obscuring her previous confidence. How could they possibly reconcile such an astonishing burden? The abyss of despair loomed larger with every setback, each moment pressing down on her like a weight too heavy to bear alone. Jake needed her, and she sensed the unyielding bond they shared deepening through the struggle. Yet, her own sense of self was becoming inseparable from this crisis. What once felt like a direct path toward redemption was starting to distort. As they walked into the negotiating room again, adrenaline coursed through her veins. She felt it, the energy shifting. But there, lurking in the shadows, was an unforeseen betrayal threatening to sever their fragile sense of hope. As Mary and Jake braced for whatever storm lay ahead, her heart raced not only from fear but with the realization that their journey could redefine everything they believed about family, responsibility, and hope if they only had the strength to confront what was truly at stake. Mary's resolve to shield Jake from despair was palpable, yet the burden of their situation threatened to overshadow her maternal instincts. With each turn of the conversation in the negotiation room, every planner's layout of Jake's future now appeared riddled with pitfalls and financial traps, designed by an invisible architect, Mr. Hughes. The betrayal stung as profoundly as the debt itself. On an impulse, she started to jot down notes. The careful calculation of potential payments, monthly budgets, and strategies to mitigate the devastating damage began to fill page after page. There was no longer space for self-doubt. They needed a plan, something tangible to hold on to amid the chaos. Mary scribbled down potential sources for loans with more manageable terms. Her experience working in healthcare, an arena where critical decisions often came with stakes just as high, kicked in. In the week that followed, they met with financial advisors, attorneys, and family friends who had weathered storms of their own. Each interaction was a lesson in resilience, contrasting their earlier feelings of vulnerability. Compiling knowledge slowly transformed them from victims of circumstance to strategists bent on reclaiming control over their narrative. Mary watched Jake begin to rise from the ashes of despair. Discussions about repayment methods turned into debates over what sort of architectural projects he could undertake, passion projects that might yield some income alongside his full-time job. They inevitably found those rare moments of levity. Their laughter sometimes broke the tension, even coaxing smiles from the grim faces of the bankers. However, the shifting dynamic of their relationship was unmistakable. Jake's fear of failure was less oppressive now, paved over by determination. He began researching loans and scholarships, tools he never thought he would engage with right after graduation. But with every step forward, Mary felt a creeping tension emerging. Was she merely guiding him, or was she imposing standards reflective of her own fears for the future? Late one night, while poring over financial documents, Mary stumbled upon an article detailing the unexpected costs of education stipends and mentorship programs. It rang like a bell in her mind, igniting a revelation. What if they sought out a community of other graduates burdened with loan debt? Could they share strategies, tips, and ideas for building a resurgence together? There was strength in numbers, something that should not only ease their paths but also hold them accountable. The next morning, buoyed by her newfound clarity, Mary suggested the concept to Jake. He lit up with enthusiasm, and together they began creating a small support group with fellow graduates from similar backgrounds. The idea flourished, bringing forth collaborations that transformed into a mini network of architects, recalling their shared struggles, fostering allyship while actively strategizing around debt management. Yet, each prospect also spurred uninvited anxiety in Mary. Would tackling this burden together truly bring them closeness, or would it only serve to reveal deeper fissures in their ideals of independence? She remained torn between an insatiable drive to protect her son and a need for him to find his footing in a world riddled with obstacles. As Mary sat awake that night, contemplating future strategies and weighing the power of hope against the fear of failure, a new question loomed. How involved should she remain? The resolution of their turmoil was coming. The moment was approaching, where she could either forge a new path for them both, or release him into a world filled with uncertainty. What unfolded next would test everything they had built. It was time for Jake to face a confrontation he had long avoided, one that could either break them down further or redefine their shared journey. Jake's burgeoning confidence simmered in the air, igniting a sense of urgency and both excitement and dread within Mary. They stood on the precipice of something transformative, a support group awakening. As his ideas started to flow, Mary's apprehension grew. Her instincts pushed her to maintain a protective grip, yet Jake was hungry for independence. How could she allow him to take risks when the stakes felt extraordinarily high? The nights became a blur of project outlines and financial schematics, conversations spiraling into debates about futures just out of reach. They would sit across from each other, sometimes bare feet propped on hastily stacked paperwork, thrumming energy exchanged in quiet laughs, occasional sighs, the lighting pulling shadows across focused faces. Mary continued to sketch plans, her pen sliding across paper as revelations materialized under her grip. Seeking local architects who might mentor Jake became a pivotal element in their strategy. They scoured the city for workshops and forums that spoke to practitioners about real-world struggles. The idea of mentorship began as an abstract concept, but soon solidified into an actionable step. "Imagine one of them taking you under their wing," she exclaimed one evening, her eyes gleaming with possibility. Jake leaned forward, eyes wide, considering the prospect. "What if we reached out to them ourselves? I could draft a proposal highlighting my passion for sustainable architecture." Yet, a knot tightened in her stomach. The leap into unknown waters was daunting for Jake, and in her mind lingered the specter of past failures. She couldn't dismiss the fear that shadowed their plans. What if they came to see him as merely another entry in a ledger? A project that flickered bright only to dim and fade? The following week, they scheduled a meeting with a local architect, a well-respected figure in their community. As the day approached, it took a toll on Mary. What if Jake stumbled on how to convey his vision? Would he feel the weight of expectations pressing down on his heart as their conversation unfolded? A fierce protectiveness stirred her instincts, asking whether she could remain in the background, and trusting him to navigate the waters. On the day of the meeting, she meticulously prepared her son, steering him through points he needed to cover potential pitfalls. Her instructions, however, bore a tinge of nervous energy. Did she appear more like an overbearing parent than a supportive ally? Realization dawned this was not merely about Jake's aspiration. It reflected Mary's own reluctance to let go of control. As they arrived at the architect's office, a rush of trepidation coursed through Mary. The sleek office interior served as a canvas of possibilities and doubts that clashed violently. The architect welcomed them warmly, but Mary found herself fading into the background, observing closely as Jake's passion illuminated the space with every word he spoke. In those moments, Mary felt a distinct shift. She recognized that Jake was articulating ideas not merely formulated through her guidance, but fueled by his own dreams. He was no longer a fledgling architect chasing the shadows of his past, but a vibrant creator eager to paint his future. The surge of pride within her was overwhelming, yet inseparable from the fear of vulnerability. Once the meeting concluded, relief washed over them both. Jake seemed rejuvenated, but Mary felt a tendril of anxiety gnawing within her. As they made their way home, she heard Jake chatter excitedly about next steps, about networking with other architects, his energy a palpable force. "Mom, I really think this could lead to something," he said, eyes shining bright. But as Jake stepped into the future, Mary wrestled with the echoing reverberations of her own fear. Contemplating a profound question: could she sever the strings that tethered her to him without cutting the bond that nurtured their ascent? The telegraphed leap into the unknown felt both exhilarating and terrifying, hinting at changes she never anticipated. And thus, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, she found herself contemplating not just Jake's journey, but the dawning challenge of confronting her own limitations. What awaited them: the thrill of new possibilities, or the uncharted territories of self-discovery? Reality loomed, and soon enough, Mary would have to confront the most challenging question of all. How could she redefine her role without losing the connection that had been forged through their shared struggles? As the days unfolded after that pivotal meeting, both Mary and Jake found themselves in a rhythm that both excited and terrified her. Jake was immersed in architecture forums, his confidence buoyed with each positive interaction. His natural charisma and diligence appeared to magnetize opportunities. Yet, behind Mary's proud smile lay a tempest of emotions. How could she balance her unwavering support for Jake's ambitions while contending with the fear of losing him to the uncertainty of his newfound independence? Mary threw herself into her work, trying to distract from her obsession with Jake's journey. Yet, the confrontation with her own vulnerability was unavoidable. Whenever Jake would share his ambitions, his ideas jammed full of imagination and practicality, she felt a deep reflexive pull to cling tightly to what was familiar. It gnawed at her that fostering this growth also meant stepping back, allowing freedom that felt dangerously expansive. One afternoon, as Mary organized her notes at her cluttered desk, she stumbled across an article about mentorship success stories. One story featured a woman who struggled with her own insecurities while guiding a young architect to establish a sustainable firm. Inspired, Mary felt compelled to reach out, which prompted her to jot down potential mentors for Jake, despite her initial reluctance. That evening, Jake excitedly shared the possibility of collaborating on a local environmental project that aligned with his values. His enthusiasm was infectious, a bright spark illuminating the room. Yet, Mary's anticipation fluctuated between genuine excitement and deep-seated anxiety. Would Jake be able to truly navigate this new frontier? Or would the weight of rapid expectations bring him crashing down? Mary sought moments during their conversations to encourage Jake's aspirations while subtly reinforcing her presence without stifling his autonomy. Conversely, she pondered. Was she doing enough to prepare him for inevitable setbacks, or was she holding him back with her continuous cautions? One fateful evening, as they wrapped up yet another brainstorming session, Jake asked her outright, "Mom, do you trust me to lead this project on my own?" The question hung heavy in the air, piercing her carefully curated composure. It pushed every button she had tried to suppress. "I believe in your talent, Jake. It's just, what if things don't pan out?" Mary's voice trembled slightly. The vulnerability behind her question surprised both of them. Jake, taken aback, paused. But what if they do? What if I excel? I need you to believe it as much as I do. In that moment, Mary found herself at a crossroads. She could feel the warmth of her son's unwavering ambition challenge her need for control. It ignited something deep within, a flicker of realization that Jake could chart his own course while she re-examined her purpose in his journey. The next day, Mary was determined to make a change. She reached out to several architects and sent out their proposals, leveraging her experience and insight while allowing Jake to take the lead. For the first time, she felt a rush of exhilarated terror, a step towards a new understanding of her role as not just a supporter, but a facilitator of his independence. But as excitement built, so too did the fear. A text that evening rattled her. An unexpected financial issue had surfaced, threatening to derail everything they had constructed. It sent her mind spiraling, questioning everything they had worked for. How would it affect Jake? Would it shake his newfound confidence? The night grew darker, echoing the uncertainty she felt, swirling with doubt. How could they move forward when the ground beneath their feet felt so precarious? The following day would bring answers, but the weight of the question lingered over them. Could Mary adapt to this new role at a time when everything felt so fragile? As their lives seemed poised on the verge of a significant shift, both mother and son would have to confront an escalating crisis that could alter everything they thought they understood. What would she discover about herself in the face of adversity? How would Jake respond when confronted with challenges greater than he had ever faced? The revelation that awaited them both could change the trajectory of their lives forever. The air was thick with anticipation as morning light filtered through the window, but the specter of uncertainty loomed larger than ever for Mary. Her heart raced, pulse echoing the relentless ticking of the clock. The text from the previous night, the unexpected financial issue, replayed in her mind like an unwelcome film loop. It had collided with her resolve, introducing a rift that she didn't know how to bridge. Mary grabbed her phone, fingers trembling as she reached out to the contacts she had been working to connect with for Jake. Each name represented potential help and guidance, but what if they found out about the looming crisis? What if this financial shortfall tainted her efforts and, consequently, Jake's ambitions? Hesitation clawed at her as she pondered whether to delay seeking help, confront the issue head-on, or take a leap of faith that might spiral out of control. "Mom?" Jake's voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts as he entered the kitchen, bags under his eyes from restless sleep. He sensed the heaviness hanging between them. "What's wrong?" The question sent a wave of heat through her cheeks. How could she lay this burden on him? But she had promised herself to foster open communication. "We need to talk," she said, her heart pounding even harder. She gestured for him to sit, summoning every ounce of courage. There's been a development regarding the project," she began, feeling the weight of her honesty. Jake leaned in, eyes widening with concern. "What is it?" he urged, anxiety lacing his tone. Mary swallowed hard and steeled herself. "We've hit a financial snag. This could jeopardize our plans." The impact was like a cold slap. Jake's face fell, the vibrant enthusiasm replaced with the seriousness of the moment. "How bad is it?" "About $900,000 in unexpected costs," she admitted, feeling as though she were exposing a raw nerve. "What if these setbacks derail everything we planned?" The silence that followed was profound. Jake's brow furrowed as he took a deep breath, processing the weight of their situation. "Then we regroup. We find another way. We can't let a number define our dreams." His voice grew steadier. Mary's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and terror. His determination ignited something within her, but also piqued her fear that this responsibility was far heavier than he anticipated. She recognized then that this moment would reshape them both. They could succumb to despair or battle through together. "Do you really believe we can pull this off?" she asked, warranting the extent of his resolve. "Of course. If this is our biggest challenge, then we owe it to ourselves to fight. I need your unwavering belief. And maybe a little strategy to navigate this." Her mind raced. Could they, together, redefine this moment? It was the first time Jake had explicitly sought her guidance in the face of failure, and while she felt elated at his insistence on collaboration, doubt resumed its familiar grip. "Okay, let's regroup with the architects and see what options exist," Mary said, her voice firmer than before. Despite the growing tension within her, She felt exhilaration build just beneath the surface. As they pieced together their strategy, each word exchanged transformed into a thread binding their ambitions. Mary tapped into her professional skills, making calls, revisiting contracts, and reevaluating the amounts promised against what they had secured. She had become the architect of their recovery, skillfully mapping out potential funding options while Jake began drafting a new proposal that highlighted their commitment to sustainability, a project he was born to champion. However, the day's developments couldn't mask the encroaching shadows of doubt. What if they couldn't find the funding? What if Jake's confidence shattered under pressure? That night, as Mary lay awake, processing the twists and turns of the day, she felt compelled to check her phone. There was a message waiting for her, an unexpected reply from one of the architects she had contacted before. "I know someone who may be able to help. Let's discuss further." Her breath caught. But could this lead truly be their salvation, or merely another hope about to be dashed? The stakes had never been higher, and the clock was ticking, creating a precarious tension, forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths together. Would they discover their potential to rise from this challenge? Or would the burdens of unanticipated struggles topple the dreams they had built? The transformation was in motion, revealing depths of strength neither had known they possessed. But the real test loomed ahead. How far would they venture into this new territory, and what would they risk to emerge victorious? Mary awoke the next morning enveloped in a sense of urgency. The sunlight streamed through the window, but it felt like a spotlight exposing her vulnerabilities. With the architect's message still fresh in her mind, she realized this was no ordinary day. It felt as if it held the potential to redefine everything. She made her way downstairs, her mind racing through the list of questions she wanted to ask the architect. Who would they connect her with? Were they really willing to discuss funding options? The potential for hope mixed with the nagging dread of failure loomed larger than ever. She needed clarity and, more importantly, a way forward. Jake was already awake, his focus trained on his laptop. "How are you feeling?" he asked without looking up, sensing the tension in the air. "Determined," she replied, the word escaping her more resolutely than she intended. "This architect reached out and we have a meeting today." Jake's head snapped up, his eyes brightening. "That's great. What do we need to prepare?" Mary couldn't shake the knot in her stomach. As they gathered their materials, project proposals, budgets, and architectural designs, she sensed Jake's renewed vigor. His excitement was infectious, yet it amplified the burden she felt weighing on her shoulders. Could she live up to this newfound hope? In the car ride to the meeting, they engaged in fervent discussions about their vision. Jake outlined ideas for revisions that would enhance sustainability prospects. Listening to him, Mary felt a flicker of pride. He had taken ownership, transformed from a passive participant in their endeavor to an advocate with bold ideas. Arriving at the architect's office, however, nerves tightened her throat. The modern design of the building projected professionalism, but to Mary, it felt imposing. The very architecture she had once admired now amplified her insecurities about their project. They stepped inside, greeted by an air of collaborative creativity that both intimidated and inspired her. As they were ushered into the conference room, the architect entered with a confident stride. "Thank you for coming. I believe you have a compelling project here," he began, settling into a chair. The conversation unfolded, each person taking turns sharing insights. Mary felt herself leaning into the discussion, her voice steady as she presented their vision. But when the topic turned to financing, the architect's demeanor shifted. "It's going to take some creativity to secure funding," he said. "There are investors who may support you, but your proposal needs to shine." Jake interjected confidently, discussing their commitment to sustainability, painting a picture of a project that added value not just financially but socially. Mary watched him almost in awe. He was articulating risks in ways she hadn't dared to think. The fire in his words stoked something deep inside her. She felt the painful grip of doubt loosening its hold. After the meeting, as they walked back to their car, Mary felt the mixture of excitement and uncertainty latch onto her. Who are these investors? What if their terms are beyond our reach? The questions tumbled from her mouth, insecurities surfacing despite her earlier resolve. "Then we find someone else," Jake replied, unwavering. "We don't stop here." His determination anchored her fears, and suddenly she realized that this challenge wasn't just about funding. It was about evolving, about believing in something greater than themselves. That evening, as they began populating a revised proposal with fresh ideas and strategies, the atmosphere shifted. The weight of the financial burden became a shared responsibility, rather than a solitary one. They worked late into the night, each interaction transforming hesitation into collaboration. Just as Mary thought they were nearing completion, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen, followed by a text. "I'm interested in discussing your project further. Let us meet." The message was a jolt, mingling urgency with an intoxicating thrill. Who was this new player? What did they want? As uncertainty coiled again in her stomach, Mary realized the next step would test their resolve even further. How far were they willing to reach out into this network, and could they turn this solidified energy into something tangible? In that moment, Mary decided she was ready to confront whatever came next. But the real question loomed. Would they be prepared for the stakes ahead? Would they rise together? Or would they stumble beneath the weight of newfound aspirations? The next morning dawned hazy, much like the uncertainty that wrapped around Mary as she considered that text message. It wasn't simply a communication. It felt like an unexpected door opening, influential, but possibly treacherous. She took a deep breath and turned to face the day, knowing that clarity would only come with action. She looked at Jake over breakfast. "What do you think about reaching out to that number? Could be a trap, but it might also be the opportunity we need." "You won't know unless you try," Jake replied, his tone holding a firmness that encouraged her resolve. As he put down his fork, the determination in his eyes ignited Mary's own fire. There would be no room for retreat. The momentum they built deserved further exploration. Before diving into another draft of their proposal, Mary decided to embrace this new task wholeheartedly. She pulled her phone from her pocket and, fingers trembling, navigated to the message. Responsively, she typed a reply, suggesting a place to meet along with her availability. Pressing send felt liberating. The decision made, it was time to step into the unknown. The hours in between were filled with a mixture of anticipation and panic. Ideas for their proposal swirled in her mind like restless spirits. Each iteration revamped their vision, pushing the boundaries of what she thought was possible. As Mary and Jake fleshed out their ideas, she noted Jake's growing ability to conceptualize the financial aspects, breaking down costs, estimating potential returns. "Where has this side of you been?" She laughed, trying to mask the surge of gratitude overwhelming her. "Maybe he was just waiting for you to believe," Jake shot back playfully. Yet the weight of truth lingered. They moved closer to a partnership marked by mutual respect, each feeding off the other's strengths. The agreed-upon meeting time arrived, and the nerves re-emerged as they approached a modest cafe, its brick facade exuding warmth, a stark contrast to the apprehension swirling inside her. The thought of facing another mysterious player in this venture gripped her. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with chatter, and they settled at a small table tucked away in a corner. The coffee smelled like hope. It tightened the knots of doubt. Minutes felt like hours before an unfamiliar face stepped in, a tall figure with an air of confidence that demanded respect. This was not a casual spectator but someone with power and intention. "Mary? Jake?" The voice was smooth, assessing. She nodded, her heart racing, as the man pulled out a chair with an air of authority. "Glad we could meet," he said, his eyes scanning their proposal laid out on the table. "I've reviewed what you sent, and I must admit I'm intrigued." Mary's tension shifted from dread to cautious optimism. As the conversation unfolded, she tested the waters, pushing through the initial small talk to ask pointed questions. How did he come across her project? What was it that caught his interest? Each question she posed felt bolder, edging her further into the realm of a capable advocate rather than a mere dreamer. His responses, though open-ended, revealed snippets of possibility. He was looking for impact and innovation. As they shared their vision, the dialogue transformed, expanding from basic funding to a shared ambition for the future. In that moment, Mary discovered a competency that had always been nestling quietly within her. She was no longer afraid to voice her aspirations or risk vulnerability. "I can see the passion you both have for this project," he remarked, leaning back in his chair, skepticism melting into something likelier to trust. "But to convince investors, you'll need more than passion. You must exhibit strategies, how you'll handle potential failures, market shifts." A new sense of urgency ignited in her. A sharp electric thrill. Here was a moment that could make or break them, and she felt the stakes. They were not just asking for money but for trust in their vision. Sitting across from this seasoned professional summoned the fiercest part of her, a fiery determination to show him they could handle the complexities of their goals. They left the cafe with a promise to follow up on specific adjustments to their proposal, and Mary felt a sense of purpose swelling within her. The experience had cracked her shell a little more, revealing a fiercer spirit than she had ever known. As they drove away, Jake turned to her. "You really held your ground in there. Was that the real you?" Mary couldn't quite answer. She had glimpsed a side of herself that was brave, unyielding to doubt. Still, shadows lingered. What would happen next? The anticipation twisted in her stomach, intertwining excitement with fear. Mary stared out the window, her thoughts racing. They had taken significant steps, but the distance seemed vast. There was still the challenge of refining their proposal, the pressure of deadlines to meet, and now navigating expectations set forth by this enigmatic investor. As the car pulled into their driveway, her phone buzzed again. A new message from the same number read, "Let us schedule a follow-up. I need to know how driven you two really are." Blood surged through her veins, the tension of their endeavor tightening uncomfortably around her. Could they rise to this challenge, or would it all unravel? The very question gnawed at her thoughts. In that moment, Mary understood the profound truth. Growth awaited, just beyond the confrontation ahead. And she was about to discover just how deep her commitment could run. What obstacles loomed on the horizon, testing not only their project but shaking the very foundations of their partnership. Mary lay awake that night, the soft hum of silence enveloping her thoughts like a thick fog. She replayed the day's events, dissecting every nuance of the meeting with the investor. The way he had leaned back slightly, assessing them, as if determining their worth. Would they be able to prove themselves worthy? Or were they merely on the brink of another failure? The allure of opportunity was intoxicating, yet the weight of the debt their project already entailed hung heavy on her shoulders. An unexpected wave of doubt coursed through her, a harsh contrast to the confidence she had mustered earlier. What if they could not deliver? What if their ideas could not meet the expectations they had stirred? The next morning, the first rays of sunlight peeked through her window, illuminating the determination that had sparked in the cafe. She had seen herself, a woman capable of commanding a conversation, yet a lingering uncertainty still gnawed at her spirit. She needed to harness that energy, not let it wither in the grip of fear. "Let us meet and look at the proposals again," she suggested to Jake, her tone firm. He nodded, always supportive, his enthusiasm refreshing. They reviewed their plans, dissecting each element meticulously. While they went through numbers and projections, Mary started to see the narrative unfold, every strategy woven together like a delicate tapestry, intending to impress the investor. She began to immerse herself in the numbers, learning to interpret the patterns, recognizing where they needed to fortify their strategy. "Understanding this side is key," she said, her fingers tracing the graphs on the screen. "If we can predict challenges before they arise, we'll be one step ahead." Every term and equation bore the promise of growth. This was more than a proposal. It was a statement of intent. As days turned into nights, their small workspace filled with stacks of charts and documentation. The nights were long, but Mary found herself drawn into the process. She relished the thrill of discovery, imagining their ideas blossoming and evolving. But whispers of doubt still circled her mind. Is it enough? Despite her growing acumen, she often found herself glancing at the phone for another message from the investor. The anticipation had numbed her actions, creating an invisible barrier between where she stood and where she aspired to be. Each time her phone pinged, her heart raced, hopeful yet afraid of disappointment. After a hard day of collaborating, Jake spoke up. "You've grown so much in this process, Mary. The way you handle this, there's a fierceness in you now." His words drew her attention. She studied him thoughtfully. But is it enough? Is fierceness alone enough to attract real investment? Fierceness might open the door, but it's the vision that will keep it open. A sudden clarity ignited within her. That was the crux of the matter. They had to present not just passion, but a roadmap of where their ideas would lead. A focused strategy woven with creativity and facts. Fear was shackled to ignorance, and as she fought to arm herself with knowledge, she encountered a powerful tool: her own resilience. The day of the follow-up meeting arrived and the cafe buzzed with anticipation. Mary could feel the weight of expectations tethered to their ambition. Sitting in front of the investor, she pushed her fear aside. This time she envisioned herself not as a supplicant but as a partner. "I want you to understand our vision," she began, infusing each word with conviction, "and how we will navigate any obstacles along the way." Each answer to his probing questions began to feel like a revelation, both for him and for herself. By the end, for the first time, Mary felt like she was not simply engaged in a transaction, but rather laying the groundwork for a promise, their promise to shape something meaningful. As they left the cafe, an unshakable sensation of empowerment coursed through her. She turned to Jake. "Maybe we're just getting started." But just as she relished the rush of progress, her phone buzzed once more. Another message from their investor. "Impressive. Let us talk about a formal partnership, but there are conditions I'd like to discuss." Her excitement plummeted. What hurdles lay in wait? Were they ready to face what came next? The deeper commitment could lead to greater transformations or reveal cracks they hadn't yet seen. As the weight of her commitment pressed down again, Mary realized with newfound clarity that their journey was just beginning. As she stepped forward into uncertainty, she grappled with a nagging thought. Were they truly ready to redefine what their futures could look like together? The air was charged with anticipation as Mary stepped into the brightly lit conference room the next day. Jake was already there, flipping nervously through their presentation slides. He shot her a supportive smile, though she could feel a shared apprehension vibrating between them. This meeting wouldn't just set the course for their project, it could redefine their careers. Sitting across from the investor, Mary noticed how his eyes flickered from her to the slides projected behind her. She steadied herself, focusing on the marbled table beneath her palms. They had come too far to falter now. This was not merely about securing funds. It was about manifesting their vision, a vision they had both diligently crafted through sleepless nights and painstaking revisions. "Thank you for meeting with us again," she began, intentionally modulating her voice to project confidence. The intensity in her gaze sought to convey not only her commitment but her resolve. This investor had potential, but they needed to prove they were deserving of his faith. As the presentation unfolded, Mary felt the adrenaline simmer in her veins. Each chart was a reflection of hours spent together, peeling back layers to understand the market's hunger for innovation. The space between them filled with an electric energy as she spoke about their strategic roadmap. "With your support," she articulated clearly, "we can pioneer a solution that addresses both profitability and community impact." Jake chimed in, amplifying her words with his own raw enthusiasm. "We believe that our approach will not only meet consumer demands, but also foster a loyal customer base." The synergy between them was palpable. For the first time, Mary felt shields coming down not just from the investor, but also their own fears. But halfway through, the investor interjected, his brow furrowing. "Conditions, Mary. Before we go any deeper, we need to discuss your risk management strategy. How prepared are you to pivot if the landscape changes drastically?" Mary inhaled sharply. It was a question they hadn't fully expected. "Well, we've certainly considered various scenarios," she began, feeling the familiar burn of anxiety creep in. Her mind raced through their discussions, desperately searching for the right response. "Flexibility is key, and we've outlined multiple contingencies." She recounted her growing comfort with the financial details, feeling the words flow more confidently. There was a shift in the investor's demeanor as she detailed their analysis of market trends, anything that might shake the foundation of their business. The air shifted and she sensed his curiosity peaking, but just as that thrill began to lift her spirit, doubt wormed its way in. What if it wasn't enough? As the meeting progressed, Mary witnessed the investor's palpable shift from skepticism to interest, engaged in their argument. She felt herself standing taller, the confidence bolstered by knowledge and her growing belief in their vision. But still loomed the fear of the conditions he mentioned. Did conditions imply limitations or potential collapse? The mere thought twisted in her stomach. When the meeting finally concluded, he leaned back and clasped his hands. "I see the passion you both possess. However," he said, his voice steady, "should we enter into a partnership, you will need to agree to tighter operational constraints. I'd expect regular evaluations to ensure we remain on this trajectory." Was it a pathway to growth or a restrictive chain? Mary stole a glance at Jake, whose expression mirrored her internal conflict. This was their shot, yet they need to tread carefully, walking the line between seizing opportunity and retaining autonomy. As they left the meeting, Mary felt exhilaration and dread clash within her. How would they navigate potential constraints while building something they believed in? It wasn't just about the financing, it was about what it meant for their independence. The future was opaque, yet the path ahead seemed brimming with possibility and precariousness. Are we ready for this, Mary? Asked Jake, her voice tinged with uncertainty. He squeezed her shoulder, grounding her. I think we can make it work, but we need to prepare ourselves for the challenges. Indeed, they had made strides in understanding the complexities of business, yet new obstacles loomed large. Mary stood at the helm of a precarious intersection, contemplating whether to seize the hope ahead or retreat into the safety of their previous endeavors. In that moment of contemplation, her phone buzzed again, this time displaying an unfamiliar number. Her heart raced at the thought of a potential lead, but was it a distraction or another opportunity? With her future on the brink, she felt the weight of decision press relentlessly upon her. Facing the unknown seemed both daunting and necessary. What's next? She thought, poised to confront the unexpected. Would she be ready to forge ahead into a new chapter? Or would the unforeseen turn her aspirations upside down? The answer awaited just beyond her reach. Mary sat in the familiar comfort of her kitchen, the sun streaming through the window, casting warm light across the table cluttered with blueprints, financial reports, and aspirations written in ink. She inhaled deeply, the scent of fresh coffee mingling with the palpable tension that had filled their lives for far too long. They had endured a tumultuous journey defined by overwhelming debt, unexpected challenges, and the looming shadow of uncertainty. But the end was now within sight. In recent weeks, her transformation was evident. No longer just a mother protecting her son from the harsh realities of life, she had evolved into a formidable partner standing shoulder to shoulder with Jake. The once daunting idea of navigating the waters of entrepreneurship was no longer a source of anxiety, but an exhilarating adventure. With each meeting, pitch, and revision, she had stepped further into the role of co-architect of their dreams. Just last week, they had secured an initial funding agreement with the investor, a moment of triumph that aligned their vision for sustainable architecture with real-world application. But it wasn't merely the money that mattered. It was the validation of their hard work and commitment to a cause greater than themselves. Mary glanced at Jake, who was meticulously reviewing their revised proposal. His focus spoke volumes about the growth he had experienced, evolving from the anxiety-riddled boy weighed down by $900,000 of inherited debt into a driven young man ready to reshape his destiny. His confidence was contagious, and Mary felt a deep pride blossom within her. Together, they had conquered what once seemed insurmountable. Are you ready for this? She asked, her tone light yet serious, acknowledging the stakes of the meeting they were about to embark on. Jake met her gaze, determination etched all over his face. We've prepared for this. Let us show them what we've got. As they arrived at the luxury office of their investor, the sleek surroundings ignited an energetic spark of anticipation. Each step echoed with the weight of their commitment, the triumph of overcoming obstacles coursing through them. This was not just about presenting a proposal, it was about showcasing how they had emerged from the shadows of despair and transformed into visionaries. Inside the meeting room, Mary took her position at the table with newfound confidence. Their presentation was crafted not only with projections and figures, but with passion and purpose. As they delved into their plan, discussing the sustainable initiatives they would implement and the community impact they aimed to achieve, she could see the investor's initial skepticism begin to melt away, replaced with intrigue and consideration. Impressive work, both of you. But I need to know, how adaptable will you be if the costs shift unexpectedly? He probed, the essence of the question cutting to the core of their plans. Mary felt her pulse quicken, but instead of being overrun by fear, clarity surged within her. We've developed contingency plans that analyze various market scenarios, she articulated, showcasing not only their strategic foresight, but also the extensive discussion she'd had with Jake on this very topic. The investor leaned forward, intrigued. And if you encounter setbacks? Then we pivot, she answered firmly, her voice unwavering. Failing isn't an option for us. This project is our commitment to reshape the narrative of what it means to build, not just structures but a lasting legacy in our community. Jake chimed in, reinforcing her points with insights fueled by his own experiences. Our determination drives this project. Every challenge will only refine our approach. We believe this can lead to innovative solutions and sustainable success. As their presentation unfolded, the synergy between them solidified a connection with the investor that felt almost palpable. They were no longer two people trying to escape a burden. Rather, they were a cohesive unit ready to take on the world. When the meeting ultimately concluded, the investor sat back, a thoughtful smile creeping across his face. I see vision and potential in you both. Consider this a partnership, a real chance to redefine the landscape, both literally and metaphorically. With that, the burden of doubt lifted, and a tidal wave of exhilaration surged through Mary. They had not only faced their fears but emerged with a tangible commitment to their vision as they stepped back into the sunlight. Hand in hand, Mary turned to Jake, an overwhelming tide of emotion welling within her. We did it, she whispered, an anchor of pride grounding them as they stood at the cusp of their new reality. With smiles illuminating their faces, they recognized that these challenges had crystallized their relationship, forged through adversity and resilience. The debt, once a shadow looming over their future, had transformed into a launching pad for growth and reinvention. As they walked toward the horizon of their future, the sense of fulfillment enveloped them, a testament to their commitment to confronting fears, adapting and triumphing against all odds. Now the air felt lighter, filled with potential and promise. Empowered, they were ready to take on the next challenge together. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey of overcoming trials to inspire others. Leave a like now to fuel our mission and comment your thoughts on this transformation. Lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It might just motivate them to start their own journey.